He said, all things pass into the night. And I said, oh no, sir, I must say you're wrong. I must disagree. Oh no, sir, I must say you're wrong. Won't you listen to me? Tell me I see. Oh, sorry about that. Just kind of enjoying the day. That was Goodbye Horses. And this is Qesankh my Keperu with another video for you. And today we're going to talk about my thoughts on the woman Qesankh. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. This is your first time to my channel. Welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. If you want to take your knowledge to the next level and follow the rabbit down the rabbit hole, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, $20 a month. You can cancel at any time. With exclusive access to instructional videos on the spirituals, take you to the next level. You're going to learn how to meditate. You're going to learn how to put together a magical amulet. You're going to learn how to contact the ancestors. So much more. So become a Patreon supporter today. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. Harun Nefer, may Buddha bless you. Namaste. I wanted to do a live session today to talk about the woman Qesankh. This is a movie with Viola Davis. And she is without a doubt, a great actress or actor. Can't take that away from her. But for me, she has had a checkered past in terms of how she picked roles. She picked a role in a film called The Help, which showed her as a maid to white women, very subservient in the 60s. And I had a serious problem with that role. I didn't know why she did it. And I argued with even members of my own family because they went to see it, and I asked them not to support it because they said, well, I can remember when my grandmother or whatever was made. So I wanted to, get insight to what she went through and all that. And I'm like, no, this is a very degrading film to Black women. Well, since then, Viola Davis has apologized for taking that role and publicly apologized. And I said, well, are you going to pay back the money for that role, that you shouldn't have took in the first place? So lo and behold, she takes another role, which I think is very, very degrading. It's called the Woman King. And I'll explain my rationale behind that. But before I do, I just want to get into a couple of things. Many of you know my background going into priesthood and everything like that. And you know that I've taught Black history, Black studies. I've taught filmmaking. And based on my recent experiences with Black filmmakers, I think that every Black filmmaker that goes to university needs to study Black history. There are too many Black filmmakers who don't understand history. And I remember going through high school. I went to the High School of Art and Design. And a friend, we were in architecture class, because you have to take architecture, was telling me about the slave trade and all of this. Because I had wrote a script on the Holocaust, and he says, why don't you also write one on the slave trade? And I had no knowledge of the slave trade at all. He said, you mean no one has taught you about that? I go, no, I know nothing about it. And I started to dig into it. Years later, when I was working at Payne Weber, which is, I think it's UBS, a young brother came to me by the name of Anthony, gave me a book, From Man to Superman, which actually changed my whole life. It set me off on a new course. That one book was pivotal in just shifting my entire focus of my life. Because after that one book, I started diving deeper and deeper into Black history. And I'm in priesthood, or was in priesthood, due to those studies. So this is why I say it's important for Black filmmakers to understand our history, but understand the truth of our history. Because most often what they teach is just about slavery, Emancipation Proclamation, things of that nature. And that's not really our history. It is only a blip in a moment of time, of the space-time continuum. But the problem is they have focused on it. We become myopic in our viewpoint. And most often there's not a modicum of truth in what they're portraying to us, because they're Hollywood. They're not going to paint us in a good light. They have an agenda. So there you go. Case in point, the Woman King. So I recently was on social media and had the most incredible experience of people dragging me. And I'm going to make another video about this later, because I questioned the fact that there weren't any black men in the Black Panther movie trailer, the new Black Panther movie trailer. And you will be surprised at how many people attacked me, especially black men. They were saying things like, oh, he's a coon, he loves white women, he's not really black, and then creating memes about me. And I was like, my God, is this the most childish thing I've ever seen? And the post went viral. It was the most interesting thing. I couldn't believe how this one thing I said triggered all of these people. I'm talking thousands of people, thousands. And I learned that Facebook's algorithm was pushing it out there. And then when I tried to respond in a very intelligent manner, Facebook banned me, which told me they wanted this heat. They wanted me to be dragged. But I digress. What I saw in that was that the majority of people are not awake or conscious of what's going on. And I know we use that proverbial term, conscious, wake. And typically, what I'd like it to mean is that you have your consciousness has risen to the level higher than 4D, 5D. And why I say 5D, because 5D, there is a singularity and there is love and there's oneness with all. We haven't risen to that level simply because we're constantly being socially engineered by the ruling elite, the oligarchy. See, the oligarchy is this hidden men, white men, behind the curtain. And the oligarchy isn't Elon Musk, Bill Gates, George Soros. They are the appointed taskmasters and the billionaires, but the oligarchy are the trillionaires, and you won't see them. They'll never make themselves known. They are the ones that are setting the agenda. The billionaires are the ones that are financing it, such as Black Lives Matter, financed by George Soros. But he got his orders from the top. Now, above these trillionaires, there is a very sinister force in which these trillionaires are obedient to, and I'm not going to get into who they are. This is how it works. And these billionaires spend lots of money in think tank institutions to study us, to study Black people, to study white people, and what makes us trigger, what makes us buy. And they have a plan of how they want the world to look in 100 or 200 years. And in order to do so, they must implement that plan today. And that plan comes in the form of feminism, the Me Too movement, things like that. And like things like MGTOW and stuff. This is not a recent thing. I want you to understand this. This has been going on for hundreds of years. This is why I say 99% of people, 99% of the people are socially engineered. You're basically a program right now, and you're operating according to their agenda. And it's usually and typically not in your best interest. You see, you think you make decisions like to buy this detergent, to go to this university, to marry this person, but those things are socially engineered and have been programmed into you on a genetic level from generation to generation. And because you're such a good program and an obedient program, you support the system and you attack those who are against the system and who are trying to save you. So, in other words, picture yourself in this box. And your whole life, you've been in this box. You've never been outside the box. You don't know who's out. You know that there's something outside the box, but you don't know what. And then all of a sudden, you hear a voice saying, if you push the lid up, you will be awakened and see things in a different light. And there is a world outside the box, and you can come out of that box. Now, picture yourself yelling and screaming at that voice, calling it names, saying, there's nothing outside of this box. You're a liar. Get away from me. I'm perfectly content in this box. This is what happens to those who come into our lives to awaken us to the truth of what's going on. We attack them because we want to stay in the box. We want to be a good program. A person told me to explain something to him, and I said, I would love to, but you are a program and you were not created to understand it. You are part of the sheeple. And me explaining it to you would only get into a bit of debate. And I really don't have time and energy to debate you on truth. My family, other people want to argue with me, tell me how stupid I am, how wrong I am. And I let it go because the smile comes on my face is when I do an oracle reading and I get justice or judgment or something of that nature. And it lets me know that what I am teaching and what I am doing is on the right path, that I'm speaking truth. No matter how many people condemn me or condemn you, stick to your guns. If you have truth, that's always a good defense. And I was speaking with my attorney last week because we're about to go to court. And I talked about publicly saying what an individual had done to wrong me. And he says, just be careful because you could get sued for slander. But the truth is always the best defense. And if you're right, you'll be good. You see, the Black community is dysfunctional. And it's been designed that way. You've been designed to be put into urban areas. You've been designed to be put into areas where it causes a lot of friction between each other. And then there becomes the so-called, the colloquial term, Black on Black crime. They have done the studies and they know when you populate areas, certain areas like the projects or certain red line, low income neighborhoods and deprive those people of jobs, what will happen? They know what will happen. And this makes an imprint, a genetic imprint on your DNA, and you become programmed to be hyperreactive, to hate yourself, your skin tone, to hate others who look like you. And there's various different degrees of that. In Africa, we see like a lot of the women are getting these creams to bleach their skin. That's a very extreme version. Other versions of somebody steps on you step on somebody's toe and the brother wants to beat the hell out of you. We're programmed to do that. In the same way, we're programmed to support the system that is actually for our detriment. We are programmed to be self-destructive. We are programmed to destroy ourselves. This is why the ruling elite has put these churches in our neighborhoods with these pimp pastor ministers who have failed miserably in their mission because they were never meant to succeed. They know that religion does not work for us. It's a left-brain religion based on the Hegelian dialectic. They know it doesn't work for us. We don't respond that way. We are integrated right and left hemisphere people. We cannot adapt a left hemisphere religion. How simple is that? But you idiots go to church on Sunday and listen to the pimp pastor who steals your money to buy jets, houses, and whatnot. And Creflo Dollar, that crook, has just admitted that his preaching of tithing was wrong, and the only reason he admits this is because he's going to get caught on something. We were not meant to follow a left-brain religion. What is left-brain religion? It's a religion that is based on linear thought, on reading, verbal articulation, verbal discourse, facts, figures. Listen to what I just said. Facts, figures, information, symbolized by Sebek. Clearly understand what I'm saying. The left brain is geared toward facts, figures, and information. Who are the people on the planet who responds to that are predominantly white people because they're predominantly left brain. What is the Bible? What do they say the Bible is? A history book of what? Facts and information. That's because they created that. Right brain is nonlinear. It works through emotions. It works through synthesis, merging two things to create another, meaning it doesn't see an enemy. It's congregative in its thought process, meaning it seeks to bring things together harmoniously. That left brain religion is about segregative thought process, separating itself from the world and everything is. That's why their God is separate. He's up in the heavens. The right brain people have a God that is internal. Because the right brain deals with the subconscious mind, which is why most cultures of right brain people meditate. They don't hear sermons. They don't read a book and think it's full of facts and information, or they don't think that book is a history book. The Christians believe that Bible is a history book. You've been duped. But I digress. Viola Davis has done a great wrong in taking this role because she is working with these people who are Sebek negative. Okay? And it's important to understand that. You see, they call it the woman king when they know that her character historically was never a king and could not be a king, because a king, to be a king or queen, you have to come to the royal birth line. And she was a general. She's playing a general. And they've said that the movie is just based on true events, but it's not actually historically accurate because they want to take creative license with the film. In other words, we want to dupe you. We want you to celebrate these warrior women called the Dahomey or the Mino mothers. We want you to celebrate them, but we don't want you to know the true history of them. You see, they were murderers. They were only, what is it, 1/3 of the army, because they were men in the army. They originally started out as elephant hunters, but the king at the time, and there was a king, commissioned them to be warriors to fight in wars because they had lost men due to the slave trade and other wars with other nations. So when this regiment of women were put together and trained in combat, they were ceremoniously married to the king. So they couldn't have relations with other men, and they were rewarded for their efforts in being warriors. And they were sent into battle where, in most cases, they were massacred. In the Franco-Dahomey War, which was 2 battles, they lost both times. In their neighboring nation, they fought another African nation and lost in that war too. But you see, they have to glamorize this whole idea of the goddess black female to create this matriarchy and to emasculate and demean men. The worst part of this is that the Dahomey were slave traders. They did what we call as slave raids. They would raid other territories, take the women and children and sell them, and men, and sell them into slavery. And if they didn't sell them into slavery, they made them part of their tribe where they did hard labor, and they executed them. They committed over 4,000 acts of human sacrifice. I'm going to say it again. The Dahomey were slave traders. They were so bad that the British had to step in and intervene. The white people had to step in and intervene and say, hey, you got to stop trading slaves. You got to stop engaging in the North Atlantic slave trade. This is inhuman. It's not right. The British had to come in and to stop them, because the Dahomey took control over the coastal line, which was advantageous to slave trade. So what does Hollywood do? It decides that it wants to do a movie on these women. And it wants to kind of Jedi mind trick you so you don't know that the real history of these women, they were murderers, slave traders. So keep this in mind. Now, the wonderful thing about us is that we are right brain thinkers, integrated brain thinkers. So we can still celebrate these women, but making sure we put everything into perspective and understanding, with the understanding that yes, they were strong women warriors, but they also were slave traders. But you see, the sickness of our people today, when I pointed this out, wanted to call me traitor, wanted to call me all kinds of names because they are part of the matrix, the program. The program to suppress me and the information I'm bringing to you. Oh, they called me all kinds of slanderous things for pointing this out, especially the women, because the women were saying, why are you coming against strong female women? I said, I'm telling you a truth about what the Hollywood is trying to do. Now, when I pointed out the real deal, because I just didn't say, they were slave traders, this and that happened, this is just historically accurate, because they couldn't argue with me on the facts, so they had to get all emotional about things and say, F you. I mean, I got messages in my inbox going, F you. I'm like, really? This is like childish. So I asked this question: why didn't Hollywood do a movie on the greatest queen, king that ever lived on the face of the planet and who was black? Why didn't Hollywood do a movie about this black queen, king, the greatest leader on the planet, known as by her Egyptian name, Kemetic name, Hatshepsut, foremost of the noble woman, it means, lived. Her rule came. She came into rule in 1478 BC because her son had to take over because her husband Tutmosis II had died, and her son was too young to rule as pharaoh. So she took on the mantle as pharaoh. She wore the beard, she adorned herself like a man, and ruled Egypt. And every historian agrees, and there are many books written about this, that during her rule, Egypt prospered economically, artistically. She even went to battle. She led her army into battle herself. Now, why isn't Hollywood doing a movie about her? Because she's regal. That's why. Because when you actually look at the hieroglyphics and the stone carvings of her, you'll see royalty. But when you look at the Dahomey women, they are holding these spears, looking all wild, like the way you see the old Hollywood films of the wild African tribes. She looks wild, untamed. That's the image they want you to see of a black woman, masculine, from the wilds, the jungles of Africa, where lions and tigers live. Ooh, look at these natives. Ooh, these primitive voodoo natives. That's the image they want to reinforce over and over again. Let me show you this. Let me show you this real quick. And then I got to bounce. And then I must bounce, my friends. Then I must bounce. They have cemented that image in our minds, so much so that we can't see anything else. We can't see ourselves any way other than primitive tribesmen. Let me say it again. We can't see ourselves any other way except primitive tribesmen. Okay? Keep this saying in mind for your entire life. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Judah Krishnamurti, I think I mispronounced that, but again, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. You're living in a sick society, and those who are excelling and doing well, great for them, but they are outliers. And we must understand that the society has been constructed to our detriment. So why couldn't they do a movie about her and put the Egyptian crown of Upper and Lower Egypt on Viola Davis and put the gold around her and the robe of the king? Because they don't want you to see that image. You see, I'm going to explain this to you so everyone gets this. When you see black people as tribesmen carrying these little primitive spears and doing war, that is a minute part of history, a small part of history, a blink in our history. Because what they don't want you to know, that our history is full of great empires and nations of advanced technology. Egypt, advanced technology. The Ethiopian Empire, advanced technology. Atlantis, advanced technology. We can trace our ancestry back to the beginning of the great Chinese dynasties, because we were the first Chinese, we were the Nak people. We were the first ones to create the martial arts that the Japanese and the Chinese have today. I'm going to say this again. Showing us in the tribal uniform, speaking the language and the spheres, the primitive version, is so minute in our history. Our history is full of greater accomplishments. And by the time you get to that part where you see us with the spheres and the spears and the primitive robes or whatever, we had already been a conquered people. Remember that we were enslaved by Europeans and Muslims and Black Africans. So we had gone through these terrible periods to where we were brought down. And what you're seeing with Viola Davis playing this role is just her representing the tail end of the destruction of our civilizations. And it's okay for us liberals or people here to see that and to try and make us feel good about that. They'll say, well, these women were strong, women warriors, and they were fierce. Yes, that's good. That's, but that's no excuse for what you're doing. So you're framing the image of us in a certain light. You're not showing us who we really were for tens of thousands of years as master engineers, architecture, masters at science, masters at astronomy, masters at mathematics, building. Look, the archaeologists and the paleontologists have all admitted there are things buried in Africa deep in the sands that are evidence of gigantic empires. More pyramids than we even know are still buried. Your history is so vast. Your rule is so vast. Just look at Mansa Musa, the richest man in all of history, Black man, in all of history. So rich that he could break the economy of nations if he wanted to. So rich that he just gave gold out to people. But Hollywood wants to see you as a wild, primitive native. And they want to keep that image going. And we fight to make sure that Hollywood keeps that image going, instead of demanding that we have representation like Queen Hatshepsut. What about Queen T? No, we don't want to see anything about Queen T. They want us to celebrate the woman king and also Queen Giza. Okay, great. She's a Black queen, but she also was involved in the slave trade. And I'm not saying you can't celebrate Queen Giza. You can't celebrate the Dahomey. You can, but it has to be in a balanced and truthful perspective. That's all I'm saying. And all I'm saying also is that there's a disproportionate amount of images of us as wild African natives with these spheres. Let's get rid of that. Well, the Dahomey did get guns, so we'll give them that. But we've got to start framing our image in a better light. So for me, bringing up the fact that we had empires of advanced civilizations, Atlantis, the Ethiopian Empire, the Chinese dynasties, Egypt. For me, bringing that up, I was called a coon, the sellout, all of these names from people who don't even know their own history, from people who have not stopped to look at what Hollywood is trying to do, which is to emasculate Black men and to make Black women look foolish. If you look at the poster, let me see if I can bring that up real quick. And they picked the poster for a particular reason. And I want you to see this, right? Look at the poster, because the poster itself has all this subliminal messages it is communicating to you. Look at this. Look at how wild Viola Davis looks, how primitive she looks. Look at the anger on her face. This is a scary picture. If you're a white person coming into Africa and you're seeing this, you'd be thinking, we have to be careful of headhunters. Headhunters are going to get us, the wild African people. We have to be very careful of them. I speak their language. And these pastor ministers have failed miserably in teaching you about your history and teaching women about their true power. And because we are nothing more than programs of the matrix, we kill the messenger. That's their task, to kill the messenger who comes to awaken them, to give them a red pill or whatever, or a black pill, to tell you that you have extraordinary powers, that you can do wonderful things if you put your mind to it, and that you are the descendant of an advanced civilization. I'll say it again. You are a descendant of an advanced civilization that had bigger technology than what we had today. They're still finding evidence that the ancient Egyptians were experimenting with airplanes, light bulbs, and things of that nature. How could that be? They were using crystal technology, solar power. You know, the crystals you see in Superman, like that. Atlantis was big on the crystal technology. They had already traveled to other planets via their consciousness. They had already experimented with death, and they knew what happens when you die. They knew about reincarnation, and when a new child was born, they would find out what he did in his previous life, and if it was an engineer, he would keep pursuing engineer in his new life to make him even smarter engineer. But Hollywood has to focus you on the primitive image of who we are, and you celebrate that. You think that's okay. You think that's cool. It's not. It's not. It's an insult to you. It's a direct insult to you to see these images of you as a woman, the first woman being a maid to this white woman and their help. It's an insult to you as the woman who is Hatshepsut, who is royalty, who wore gold and a crown to be represented as a wild native woman from the woman king. And that to be historically accurate, that's so historically accurate. And they called her the woman king, knowing she was only a general, to trigger and cause division among Black men and Black women. They knew that it would do that. They knew it. And we are so backwards and sick of a society that we attack the people who want to uplift us and bring us back to the heights of civilization as we once were. But the programming is so strong. The dysfunctionalism is so strong. This is why when Kevin Samuels has his channel, he was talking about we all should be in therapy, and he was 100% right. And I said that even before he was around. I said the Black community has an element of evilness in it. It's dysfunctional, and it's been implanted there by the ruling elite, the oligarchy, and that we need therapy to get through this. We haven't come out of this as a sane society. We haven't. I don't care how many commercials or sitcoms they make about us that we look good. We are a profoundly sick people and we need help. This is why they won't give you reparations, because they know reparations will go to mental health. And when you clear people up and you make them mentally well, they start to rebuild their culture. And they start to connect with fifth dimensional beings, 5D. So they have to keep your reparations from you. They have to keep you from understanding your history, not this bullshit, primitive native warrior bullshit. Oh, I shouldn't curse. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Stop allowing Hollywood to show those images of us. That image is just a blip in our history. Do you understand? If this cup were full of water, it's got orange juice. Okay. If this cup was full of orange juice, that would be the totality of our history. And the part that would be the primitive native person would be just a drop in this cup, just a drop. And the rest would be as us. We started civilization. We were here at the beginning. And because and I don't want to use these terms, but I'm going to just use this, okay? Because the Black man and Black woman rose up from Pangaea and ventured out to Europe and lost pigmentation and adapted, we know that these civilizations that are the greatest in history were of people of color. People of color. And the same thing they have done to Black people, which is the canary in the coal mine, they're doing to you white people as well. They are destroying the idea of white malehood. They are promoting white females in roles they shouldn't be in to make them masculine as well. They're making the white males look like dumb idiots because they have an agenda. Patrick, you're absolutely right. Hollywood is very racist. They do not want to admit that the original Black women were goddesses, queens, empresses of the nine ether over soul dimension Earth. Yes, you're right, 100%. Can I give you a star for that? I'm going to give you a star for that. Please donate to the channel. This is your religion, so-called religion, your culture. Preserve it, covetous. And that's the problem. You see, we go ahead and we're so some of these women are so feminist, they go rah rah Viola Davis. But they don't look at the real empires and the real women who are badass. A queen, king as Hatshepsut, leading her army into battle My God, when she doesn't have to. She's filthy rich. She doesn't have to. Not only that, without a king by her side, she brought Egypt to the zenith of civilization. She did. But they want to just focus on Viola Davis and these women who were slave traders, participated in the North Atlantic slave trade. That's what they want to support. That's what we're screaming about, because we are in the matrix. We are programmed. It's a genetic programming. It's going to be hard as hell for it to get out. And some of the worst offenders of this were Black men. I never got attacked so much by Black men, and I'm out there working on their behalf. I went on a panel discussion last week. I was on this panel discussion, and I was telling all the men on the panel discussion of what happened. Do you know that every one of them was silent? I said, my own brothers attacked me when I was just trying to explain. And this was about the Black Panther 2 trailer. What I was explaining was the subliminal message they were trying to send in that trailer. And my own brothers attacked me. Well, every brother on that panel stopped, took pause, and said, I am so sorry you had to go through that. We are so sorry you had to go through that. We appreciate your message, Qesankh. And I had never in my life been so disappointed in my people when I brought this information to them. And they said the most vile things about me, the most vile things about me. All because they don't know themselves and they don't know history. This is Qesankh Ma'Keperu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. Ma'at is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, Amun Ra.